So a few days ago, a few bad actors in the Destiny Twitter circle decided to harass the developer Kevin Yanes off the site permanently, and it was for this particular tweet. In the tweet, Yanes is referring to the Destiny 1 exotic Twilight Garrison, which allowed Titans to dodge midair, almost identical to the Ichor stash that Warlocks have. In Destiny 1, the Twilight Garrison was probably the most useful and praised Titan exotic in PvP, as it allowed Titans to both escape from their tight situations and also to get massive speeds through Titan skating, which was much more easier and potent in Destiny 1. The thought of Titans never getting this beloved exotic to return really riled the Twitter crowd up. So as much as I liked Twilight Garrison, it's not coming back. It's clear it's a part of the Warlock identity, at least according to Bungie. Some people today just don't see Titans in Destiny as having dodge actions like the multitude of options that Warlocks and Hunters have access to. It's exactly what led to their harassment on Twitter. So, let's spit in those people's faces. I'm going to showcase all the instant disengage options that Titans have access to right now in one video, both the practical and frame perfect. I'm going to show that Titans are still the movement class. This doesn't really count as a dodge action or an instant disengage, but I'm going to start it off just because it's something you really should get accustomed to if you're even remotely serious about playing Titan in PvP. It's called Titan Skating, and it blends very nicely into just about all of the movement options I'm just about to discuss. Make sure you've equipped the catapult lift and find some sort of way to press the spacebar really quickly. Some people use macros for this, but they're kind of in a morally gray area as far as Bungie is concerned, and I'm not really sure if you'll get banned for using them, so I personally just set my jump to scroll wheel. For the best results, you're going to want to aim for 1 or 10 mobility on either side of the spectrum and equip some movement-based gear like Dune Marchers or a lightweight weapon if you really want that extra zoom. Titan Skating is going to be great for moving in one direction or, most importantly, keeping your momentum, and it also has a ton of minor interactions and quirks that you'll just honestly pick up with time. Some fun examples would be like shooting behind you while moving at top speed, or picking up a sort of mini boost after hitting a downward slope. Your bread and butter of GTFO is probably going to be your shoulder charge, unless you're playing stasis, which I'll touch on. The shoulder charge is going to be your most consistent and trustworthy movement option in your toolkit when it comes to getting out of tight situations. Unless it's absolutely necessary, like suppressing shield bash on a super, it's best to not actually attack using your shoulder charge. It can be a damper on your movement game when on cooldown and is infinitely more valuable as a permanent movement option in your toolkit. A few things to remember about your shoulder charge. In almost all cases, an aerial shoulder charge is going to be your best friend. Shoulder charging on the ground leaves you very exposed at the end of the animation. Also, an aerial shoulder charge blends very nicely into a Titan skate line. Just make sure you time your initial jump correctly. If you're stuck in a really tight corner or you just don't have the room to peek, try to sprint into a wall or sprint into a circle to build up the cooldown timer without actually exposing yourself before getting away quickly. This may seem intuitive, but shoulder charge also puts you into a third-person camera. Try to get into the habit of shoulder charging in one direction while looking in the other to keep an eye around yourself. If you actually want to be really scummy, you could even just shoulder charge into the wall to 3-peek around corners. With a recent patch, the sprinting time required before shoulder charge can be executed has been greatly decreased to just about 1 second. Try to get an internal clock going on when it's about ready, and try to anticipate the cooldown before the visual even shows up on the screen. Remember, you can do this almost every other second. Try to abuse it. This may not work with all loadouts, but it's so much more applicable to Titan movement that I'm just going to mention it here. If you have a sword with the perk Eager Edge like Half Truths or the other half, you can probably know that you can launch yourself by switching to another weapon after activating the perk. This can be a really fun but kind of impractical way to fling yourself across Crucible maps, especially paired with the power of Titan Skating. What most people aren't aware of is that Eager Edge still kinda works without ammo. It moves you slightly in the air, which wouldn't mean much in the grand scheme of things, but because Destiny, you can actually start a Titan skate out of it. And this is what I would call the other bread and butter of Titan movement. It can get you out of close fights, it can redirect your momentum, and it can even get you to a pretty moderate Titan skate speed every 5 seconds, and all without heavy ammo. I don't even really have to elaborate on why this could be so useful because it's almost identical to the shoulder charge in almost every single way, aside from the fact that you can use both of them simultaneously. Remember when I said that an aerial shoulder charge was best in almost all situations? If you really want to squeeze out the maximum potential from each shoulder charge, there's roughly 2 different situations where a grounded shoulder charge has its own merits. First, if you're trying to get the most distance and speed, Starting a shoulder charge on an elevated object and then falling off is going to skip the slowdown you'd normally experience at the end of an aerial shoulder charge, making you go further initially and skate faster afterwards. Secondly, to make lightning quick peaks, try to initiate a shoulder charge a little after a slide. By sprinting, sliding, shooting, whipping 180 degrees, and then shoulder charging in the other direction, you can put shots in virtually for free. Bonus points if you combine this with the shoulder charge slide off. Getting the motion down and the timing down while aiming properly is going to take a little practice, but it is extremely applicable in one-on-one gunfights or literally any competitive scenario. The Stasis Titan doesn't really have much movement capabilities as opposed to all the light subclasses, but I'll mention what I personally find useful. Cryoclasm is obviously useful to get around quickly, but it can also be used to get back into cover quickly while shooting if you're comfortable with flicking. The Shiver Strike isn't really optimal for movement because of its long cooldown, but if you really need to, you can shake back and forth to make yourself harder to hit while covering essentially the same distance. Also, you fall like a brick when using this ability. For what it's worth, you can probably put that to use somehow. These next few are really cool, but they're almost completely impractical just because the timing is so tight. You can zoom by activating any light super along with an eager edge heavy attack or a shoulder charge right near a ledge. It'll make you go pretty fast, but it also uses your super. The shoulder charge input should come just before the super, but the window is actually so tight you'll be best to just activate them both at the same time. For bubbles, it's just a really cool movement tech to show off with, but I can actually see the striker and sunbreaker variants actually having some usage outside of this large amount of speed. Okay, that's about it. Combining all these things together, I think personally makes Titans comparable in movement to Warlocks and Hunters. At the very least, there's some situations where I think they're the best. If you want to see me make one of these for Hunters or Warlocks, let me know. I just know the most about Titans because I play them the most. See you guys.